Welcome, everybody. This is Coffee with the Founder. I got it instead of Coffee with the Journalist because I also host another podcast, which I've done for a long time. But I'm Beck Bamberger. I'm here talking with founders who are doing great things in our world, raising a lot of money to do it often, going through it, as this is a psychotic level thing to do, having a startup. And with us today is David Sulpy, who's the CEO and founder at Glue. We're going to talk all about what Glue is doing because on your LinkedIn, David, it says build the right thing the right way faster. So
That's
let's
right.
get into it. Thank you for being here in freezing Seattle, as you said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's cold, but that's the normal story here.
That's a normal story.
But no, it's good.
That's normal. By the way, I have my little fan going, so it's like blowing in the hair, blowing in the breeze because it's hot here. So, David, why are you a founder?
Well, I've been a founder for most of my career,
Yes.
and it's largely because I have both a passion for technology, which all of the companies that I founded in the past have all been technology companies, but I
Hmm.
also really appreciate the application, the big picture, actually delivering something that drives some impact. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to just grab the horns of what you're doing and the holistic process itself and get after it. And so I think that being a serial founder is what gives me that kind of freedom.
You have what I call founderitis. You can't stop once you start.
Yeah.
Can't. And also you're unemployable mostly for other places. So that's typically what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, that's right. I had a previous investor one time who told me that when I said I was a multi-time founder, he said, "Oh, so you're just you're glutton for punishment." And so
Yes,
I guess to
you
some
are
extent maybe that's true.
slash never a good employee at this point. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. So what's Glue solving? We talk about here, yeah, build the right thing the right way faster. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, we're entirely about accelerating product realization, hardware product realization by implementing smarter, faster test automation. So
Hmm.
knowing that you built the right thing and knowing you built it the right way are really complex challenges for
Yeah.
all of those building hardware products. I
Hmm.
come from a software background, and in the software world, I spent a lot of my prior careers building quality software and building things around automating the quality aspect of that software, things like unit tests or acceptance tests
Hmm.
or integration tests. And this is really obvious in the software world, but that's because you're building in an automated environment already.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're in the hardware world, it becomes entirely more complex. You have a lot more tools around you. Those tools have their own sort of ecosystems and complexities and nuances about them.
Hmm.
And you have to employ them to solve your problems in validating and verifying that your product design as built is actually what's going to solve the need that your customers have.
Yes, and you say very openly on the website here, yeah, building hardware is hard. That's the current, the common vernacular for anybody in hardware. God bless people who do the hardware. So, but walk us through this. If you have, actual technical piece of hardware, I see kind of your one, two, your productive and everything. But how are you all not interfacing necessarily with the hardware itself, or are you? How does that actually work?
Yeah, so we think about the process in sort of three main buckets or jobs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
One is about automating the discovery of the specifications or the requirements that a product has that deem it whether or not it's the right product, right? So these are things like your company has determined that you want to build a printer that prints a certain number of pages per minute, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
a sort of feature requirement. Those
Mm-hmm.
get drawn into specifications. Then you have really smart engineers that work to figure out what are all of the actual components that are going to come together to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're sending a satellite up into orbit. How are you going to assemble the right components that are going to take that payload and safely deliver it to space? And
Mm-hmm.
so the discovery of all the requirements or the things that are driving the specifications for that that can be overwhelming. There's disparate
Yeah.
data sources, requirements all over the place. You have requirement management systems. You might have hundreds of pages of specification documents, and test engineers or engineers wearing the test engineering hat have to digest all of this information. And oh, by the way, it's constantly changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's a lot of work to do. It takes a lot of time to do it. It's a big knowledge task. And so automating the discovery of those specifications helps create a more tangible, interactable place to develop test plans. And so that's the second part of the product, is like an IDE or an integrated development environment, like an IDE for test engineers to be able to pick, select, engage the right test instruments. So these are things like oscilloscopes, DMM, arbitrary waveform generators, are kind of complex things in and of themselves. Pick the right ones, use it to actually execute a test on your product. And then the last piece is automating that test. So these two last pillars are all about how long does it take you to develop a test, and then how long does it take you to execute the test. And so there's a lot of strategy, company strategy, that applies to both of those areas that gets lost because the complexity is high, the uncertainty is not really well understood by all of the stakeholders involved, and ultimately these teams are tasked with being the long pole in the tent to revenue recognition for a company trying to ship their product.
And I imagine the pain of this being solved so quickly is, or the removal of the pain when you solve it so quickly, is like happiness, euphoric. Or is it like it truly, this is a pain removal?
Yeah, totally. Engineers want to build cool stuff, right? When you go to work for a space company, you do that because you think it's really awesome to launch something into orbit. You don't do that because you're like, oh, I'm so stoked about like taking a measurement signal, or like making sure that I've got the right, piece of equipment here, or debugging this problem that seems to be like, all over the place, right? I want to spend my time doing the things that matter rather than the things that are really undifferentiated. Like, those are problems that everybody has to solve. We help everybody solve them more quickly.
That's fun. We have a concept we're talking about in BAM this year, particularly around freedom to versus freedom from. Freedom from is like, oh, I got away from that thing, versus freedom to design something that goes into space. Freedom to like nerd out about that thing that you're building that you're going to be shipping around to 7 countries, and like that. So I think you're getting a little bit to that essence, which is way more fun.
Yeah, exactly. Totally right.
David, what's the best interaction you've had with a VC? Because you raised $2 million last year or so.
Yeah.
Did you I think you said before we talked, you said you were oversubscribed, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. There's been a lot of interest.
Which is amazing. Did you have a good experience?
We had a great experience, and this is, I'm fortunate in that this is not the first time I've raised money. I've gone through this process before. I've had great partners here that have helped in the sort of venture establishment side, in Pioneer Square, and also even a corporate partner in Fortive. But ultimately, we've been fortunate in that access to capital has certainly not been our constraint, as much as it's been making sure that we've got the right engagement with VCs that are going to bring more than just money. Right, money is the commodity of commodities here in startups. So what we really need is expertise and contacts and delivery mechanisms, and these things that really provide value. And so if I go back to the best kind of interaction I've had with a VC, so I had a venture partner who they didn't, their first questions were not about TAM, they weren't about go-to-market, they weren't about my commercial economics or what my exit strategy was, when am I going to go public, or am I going to look for a private acquisition. Instead, they asked, what non-obvious insight do I have about the world? And so it sort of took me.
And what was your answer?
It took me aback, because honestly, I heard the question and I was kind of like, what? I don't know if that's a cocky question or if you're looking for a cocky answer, but I'm not really sure. So I just was kind of taken aback. But I as I thought about it, I was like, this is incredibly insightful that this VC is, by the nature of their venture name, they're looking for a partner that's going to help them venture or pioneer into a new space. They're not just looking for private placement of deployment of capital. They're not a financier underwriting risk. They're actually looking to see, like, what's the way in which a founder, me in this particular instance, what's a way in which this founder views the world that has inspired them to go go after this problem with their whole self, and so that was
be psycho to do this.
That was a great
Was that their first question, by the way? Like their opening question?
Yeah, totally opening question. It was just sort of like that was after the introduction to what really high level of what we're working on.
Yeah, got it. They got
and yeah, that was the first question. And so it was just went straight at it. It caught me off guard. Loved it. Created a really authentic rest of the conversation.
Oh, great. Okay, so what was it? What did you answer?
Well, the answer was entirely about how the AI that we were developing inside of accelerating test for hard tech.
Yeah.
It was entirely about how this is not just another general purpose natural language based AI that is helping someone move faster in an existing workflow, but instead it embraces this new paradigm of human machine interface that further expands the velocity of progress. So this is like a little more sort of high level on the disruptive nature of general purpose natural language based AI. So it's less about automating some kind of mundane task that exists because that's the way the incumbent system was set up.
Yeah.
And instead is more about what does a new paradigm of interfacing look like where software that already codifies task automation, right? That's all software is. AI is now enabling us to move beyond these pre-optimized task automations and toward real-time experiences. And this was particularly apt for Glue because we're talking about taking the really talented and expert engineer and multiplying their effect by taking this AI that we have as a augment to that engineer and this human in the loop, this engineer first AI, and really just sharpening their capability for impact. And so I think that was
Freedom
again Freedom 2. That's right. There you go. Freedom 2.
There was a great article recently in the New York Times. It was just in print actually this morning, if I do recall, about how a medical system actually increased the number of its radiologists because this is back on the East Coast, because the AI technology is helping so much and 10xing, but it's actually not a replacement. No, it's a huge 10xing type of thing. Totally. So I can see this. Sounds like it, that Glue helps 10x that hardware developer into now being able to do more, such that you can develop more cool stuff.
Yeah,
actually, you would maybe want to hire more for that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And I think that oftentimes, the sort of understandable popular belief of AI is displacement. It's going to displace these things, and that's because that's sort of generally been the thread of technology.
It has been.
And so AI is no unique wave of technology disruption in that essence. But in sort of a nod to your freedom from versus freedom to, it's in the freedom from kind of perspective, it's almost like a fear-based thing, as opposed to this realization that there is no way, we as humans are particularly bad at forecasting what the future of capability is going to be. Who would have thought that SpaceX as an example, who would have thought that SpaceX bringing down the cost of launch by 100 times, more than 100 times, would create an opportunity for a new startup to develop a reorbiting satellite, like a satellite that just goes and helps adjust the orbit of another satellite. It's wild. There's so much opportunity that we'd never know.
Yeah. Exactly. This is the thing I'm talking about, the freedom to. So can you imagine the freedom to be 10xing and doing the work you love versus the non-human boring stuff that's By the way, and with technology, of course, that is far better at it. If radiologists can do better with the patient, the actual human, instead of spending 3 hours trying to look at some images to see, do you have cancer or not, when the AI just told you in 2 seconds, you do or you don't. Isn't that what we all want? Freedom.
Exactly.
That's kind of my thought.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Well, here's a question, David. What recently then became clear?
I think this is probably similar vein, that this idea, and I think I've maybe not to give myself too much credit, but I feel like this has been something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it just constantly becomes more clear. And I feel like it could never be even clearer. And like each time, it's just sort of like a new clarity. But this idea of that human-machine interface, that natural language-based AI is going to really, really change the way we interface with digital technology. And we think about all the ways in which we interface with digital technology today, that generally, I mean, even since the creation of the PC, we've talked about what the future of new natural interfaces look like. But what's become clear to me now is that the velocity of progress, the expansion of the velocity of progress when the natural interface to something that is capable of handling a lot of complexity, where humans are natural. Like, I used to use this example all the time where, you give a toddler, like put in front of a toddler, this is a sort of irrelevant question now because of AI, but you put in front of a toddler an apple and an orange, and you ask them which one is the apple. And they almost so quickly they choose the apple. It's just trivial, right? Yet they didn't have to go through some like massive amount of training. There's no crazy amount of work. They didn't think about it really hard, and they didn't get it mostly correct. Yet we present computers with the same question, and it has required a ton of pre-training to know which one's the apple. And they say it with a high level of certainty, but not a guarantee. And I think what this really points to is one half, the other half being, let's say, same toddler, give them and you're just like, hey, I need you to calculate the area under this curve, or just tell me how much water precisely I can put inside this bowl. The toddler is going to be like, I don't even know how to understand this question.
Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah.
But you give that same question to a computer with way less training, because there's not a whole lot of AI required there. And the computer is going to give you the answer instantly with little thought and little energy. And this just speaks to the sort of yin and yang between what humans are good at and what humans design other systems to be good at. And so what's become clear to me is that natural language AI is this new enabler for this like next level interface between the yin and yang of humans can become more emotional creatures, and more social, and more driven to do the things that we believe is meaningful to us. And then the machines can do the things that are more complex, like manage my schedule and make my coffee and do the things that don't really matter so much to me right now. Allow me to take care of my own differentiated task.
David, what if AI is the savior of humanity?
Maybe it is. Maybe it is.
That's my hot take. I mean, I'm with you on this of like, this can be, now this is obviously in the best of outputs of a renaissance of humanity, in the sense of care and empathy and feelings, and actually having the doctors talk to patients versus spending time writing on the sheet, as an example, or typing on the form, and allowing for humans to be more human. Imagine this.
Yeah, totally. It's something that I think it's the euphoria of all technologists like looking forward.
It is.
And I think we've thought about that regardless. I think we've thought about that regardless of whether we called it AI or we just called it general technology.
Yes.
And for some reason or another, we always kind of get in our own way. Like even just the example of a doctor with a patient in a room, and we're just like, oh, let's take medical records and let's make them electronic. And now the doctor is going to spend less time like writing on paper and more time interfacing with the patient. And then we sort of mess it up along the way, and we interface like all these complex interfaces to the doctor. And now the doctor has to learn some new software, and there's nothing natural about that. But like, what does it look like when truly what's natural to the doctor is uniquely contextually natural to that doctor? And that, I think, is a new like a new unlock.
We're going to get there, David. We're going to get there.
We will. No doubt. Especially with glue here.
Especially with glue. Way to put that in, David. Okay. Well, I know we are at time. I got to host a Witch Club at BAM, which is how we make cool things be manifested. See, very human of us.
Beautiful.
No AI that's going to be happening that way. So appreciate you being on.
Absolutely.
Everybody.
It's good to talk with you again.
Yes, it is. This is David Sulpy, CEO, founder of Glue, making hardware much easier to build. Imagine, imagine. So we can have freedom too, do the more human things.
That's right. Totally.
Love it, David. See you. Don't be freezing in Seattle.
Yeah, I'll do my best. My
Your
hands are
best.
still cold.
Your best.
They shouldn't be.
All right, see ya.